Good morning.
Good morning.
It's October 17th,
And
2021.
and our great claim to success today is that we're wearing nearly matching clothes.
We harmonize.
Yeah.
We harmonize anyway.
Welcome, everyone.
Our topic today is we is greater than me, going further together. So I'm going to start with a reading written by Ernest Holmes, our founder. And it's entitled, and it's the one for today in 365. It is, I abide in the realization of divine union. I always have been and forever will remain a complete and perfect expression of the eternal mind, which is God, the living Spirit Almighty. Today, I enter into the limitless variations of self-expression that the divine Spirit projects into my experience, knowing that all experience is a play of life upon itself, the blossoming of love into self-expression, the coming forth of good into the joy of its own being. I enter into life with joyful anticipation and with enthusiasm. I know that God must be present in my every act, word, and thought. Therefore, I know that freedom and fulfillment are mine today, the freedom to think, to act, and to move in complete accord with divine harmony. As I go forth into this new day, I rejoice in the good that comes to me and to all people. Today, I shake my thought clear from the belief that external conditions are imposed upon me. I declare the freedom of my divine birthright, knowing that I possess the kingdom of God in all its fullness. There is no bondage in God. Therefore, there is no bondage in me. I have a great sense of joy in knowing this truth, since the burden of personal responsibility is lifted. Today, I abide in the deep, calm realization of divine union. And so it is.
Beautiful.
So with this title, Going Further Together, this is taken from an African proverb, which says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So Bob and I were talking about all the ways in which we can accomplish more in groups than we can by ourselves. Do you want to start?
Well, I think the first benefit of operating in a group, which is a really important benefit, is, and it's fundamental to our ability to thrive, is safety. And what we know and have known culturally and in every area is that safety is created in numbers more easily than when we're by ourselves. And so the first agenda we have in order to be creative, in order to be able to be expressive of our nature, our true nature, and to explore our true nature, is to be in a group or to be not alone. And so I think if we look at accomplishments and achievements that have been things that have been achieved over the centuries, they have been achieved collaboratively. And so in particular, if you look at the arts, the Renaissance period, although the artist often worked alone in a studio, they were supported by people in the community who wanted them to contribute. And so what we have in the creation process is a necessity of safety. And that necessity of safety is created by agreement and by cooperation and collaboration. And so the reason that I think this is so important today is that to ask yourself, who am I working with? Who am I collaborating with? Who am I in cooperation with? And is that helping me or hindering me in my accomplishments? And I think surrounding ourselves with people that support our good and support our creativity and support our imagination is critical to our safety, our well-being, and our creativity.
Indeed. And, you know, I had to think about this at first because I tend to be a self-starter and a loner in many ways. For example, in school, I never liked study groups. I could get far more done on my own alone than I could. I considered it a waste of time to be in a group with other people, and tend to have always had my own business or things like that. So I had to really, I've never done group sports. I just had to really think about, what are all the ways in which we go further together? And it's of course really most things. It's really most things because even though I thought of myself as a loner, I was always in a tribe of some kind, and we come from tribes. That's how we developed. And as a matter of fact, it's very interesting with the Native Americans. They would adopt people. They would adopt white people who they captured or they found or
They call it
whatever.
adoption. We're adopting you, but you can't leave.
But the reason they adopted people was that everybody in the tribe knew how to treat you. If you were the chief's daughter or if you were, somebody else's daughter or son, they had the relationship down and there were rules about how to treat you. If you were not a member of the tribe and somebody's relative, they didn't know how to treat you. So they would adopt people. But we all grow up in a tribe of some kind, of family, of some kind, family unit, neighborhoods. And so really we do everything together. As I rethought my life, I never did anything alone. It was always with the support of family or a group or a tribe.
What you're talking about in part, though, I learned many, many years ago when I studied handwriting analysis, and I first began doing handwriting analysis. And one of the terms I liked a lot that I have continued to hold on to over the years is that there are people that are emotional introverts and social introverts. And then there's social extroverts and emotional extroverts. And so a lot of us are emotional introverts. We're relatively private and need a lot of private time, but that doesn't mean we don't need or want people.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
we can be socially extroverted, and that's where we're in community, but we can also be individually introverted or private. And this wonderful blend of being alone and together. But there's also the realization that when you're alone, you're still together.
Mm.
And, I know that being married to Judith, I'm real aware that when I'm working by myself and she's in the house, it's different than when I'm working by myself and she's not in the house. And so, so that aloneness at different levels, you begin to pay attention to how supportive being with somebody is, even if you're only with them, or if you're with them in spirit only, or in mind only, not necessarily in the physical proximity. And I think it's especially true when we look at Facebook and places like that, and Instagram and whatever, to see that the support we get, that even though these are people we don't actually see face to face, the support we get becomes part of our community. It becomes part of our well-being, part of our wholeness.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know that we need to be together occasionally. Sometimes we need some community of friends, family, neighbors, community, church communities. We need those because the very worst punishment we can do, and it used to start in childhood in our age, and those of you who are our age, who, when you were being punished, you were sent to your room.
Banished.
You were banished from the company of other people. And at school, you might have been put in a corner facing the wall. So you were taken away from others. And in prison, the very worst punishment you can get is solitary confinement. And we know that actually drives people crazy. So we do better together and we get more accomplished together.
Yeah, we're social by nature. And I guess the spiritual question is, what kind of relationship do you have with you? Are you alone with you, or are you with the greater self, the greater you? And, when we talk about God as an internal part of our being, an internal aspect of our own expression, that's very different from God outside, who may or may not approve of us or connect with us or talk to us.
Right. I was planning to save the metaphysical message till later, but I think maybe we should begin with it, because certainly the reading did. We know metaphysically that we're all connected and we're all part of God and living in the mind of God, the heart of God, whatever you want to call it. It is all the energy of God expressing. I don't mean God as a being, as a man, but as an energy, a creative energy. And so we can never be on our own. Actually, we are all connected, and we get more done when we're
Mhm.
connected. So later on, I'll go into some of the
I think
benefits
an
that we do
example
in
of
the
that,
world.
and I don't want to reduce this to the insect world, but if you ask an ant who's in charge, if you ask an ant if he's operating alone, if you ask an ant what his job was, he would say, I don't know how I got the job I've got. I don't know how I am in a relationship but I know exactly where to be and how to be. Because what you notice in an ant community is that there's a higher force, there's a greater intelligence operating through that. And and no single ant could tell you what that universe looks like. But because they can't tell you, it doesn't mean there isn't one. It doesn't mean there isn't any order or there isn't any relationships.
Could you open that door, please? Um, so where do we get into problem? Where do we get into problems of not trusting others, not knowing how to cooperate with others? I think it comes from maybe even the family you grew up in. I know I got some of that, that the only ones you can trust really are the family. So it becomes the other. Everybody else is the other, and you're not sure you trust them or if they're safe. As Bob said, safety is the main issue. I never had quite understood why when I first started school, and I was about 4.5 when I started first grade, which is very young, and never been away from my mother. She was my constant caregiver, and she was very loving and very supportive. And so my first day at school was my first day away from mother, and I cried the whole day long. And nobody was anything but nice to me, but it just was scary. It was everybody else was the other. I didn't know them. I didn't know that it was safe. Fortunately, I think I only did that the first day. But that's what we tend to do also. We live in tribes, but if we don't know the tribe, we get very scared and we don't trust other people. And that's where we start getting into trouble. And part of it is wise and cautious. You can't trust everybody, and you have to wait and see what it will be. But the truth is, when you really know that we go further together, then you want to take every opportunity to include more people in your world and in your endeavors, because we really do accomplish more. I started thinking of well, just metaphysically, even as an organization, as a church, uh, you can do more. For example, when Fukushima happened, um, I believe we were in Paradise when that happened, California, and we had a woman come who lived there and speak to us. Now, of my own, the money that I could have given, I would have thought was a drop in the bucket. I probably wouldn't have even sent it. But because she asked for contributions from our whole church, we gathered a nice sum of money and were able to make a gift. That's something that we could do as a group that we could not have
Get it
done
together.
separate. And what Bob and I always loved about going into a new community, and because we kind of went to a number of churches to repair damage that had been done one way or the other. And so we served 5 or 6 different communities. And so what we loved about it is when we went, we had instant community, we instant belonging. There were people to spend holidays with, people to socialize with, people to work with. And we loved that. We loved
See,
that.
there's a whole world out there that exists that you can have as much to do with as you want that you don't necessarily know even exist. When we taught a certification course for hypnosis across country, we traveled
Before ministry.
before ministry all over the country. So who would have known when we went to Chicago that there would be a psychologist in the class who would take us on a tour of the Chicago community and all the many, many, many churches that they existed, because apparently whenever a Catholic community or
Polish
Polish
Catholic.
Catholics moved to Chicago, they brought their church with them. So there's a church
They
in every
brought their
corner.
church builders.
Yeah, an
Church.
unbelievable inventory of magnificent buildings, all of which exist in a city that we never would have seen it. And
Yeah.
it's a good example to me. If you want, she wanted to show us the heart and soul of the community, which I thought was the Sears building because it was very, very tall. And she said, no, actually, the heart and soul of our community is the Polish community, and their centers, their churches. I'm sharing this because people that you know things that you don't know. And if you open up to them and invite them to share who they are, your world gets bigger, your world gets richer, your world is more complete.
Precisely. So then I started wondering, but well, what can we do? What can we do as governments that we can't do by ourselves? Well, lots of things,
Raise taxes. I'm
one of the
sorry.
biggest things is disaster relief, healthcare, if the government's willing to do it, retirement pensions for our elderly, building roads and bridges, participating in world governments like the United Nations, even prisons, our legal system. So that's what we do as a we instead of a me. And all of that provides safety. All of that is a matter of caring for each other. And even on the world level, right now with the Paris Peace Accord, with everyone working towards reducing our carbon emissions and dependence on fossil fuels, and whatever else we can do to help us turn the corner on this global warming situation, we can't do by ourselves. They rightfully get upset with the US and say, well, you caused most of it. You've been doing it longer. You should do more. And we should. But even if we did all that we could do, we couldn't do it without the rest of the world participating. So it's something we have to do together. And I believe it's something that we are doing together.
So a mission or a task that I'd like to suggest to all of you, and one that I'm taking on myself this week, is to find 12 people in the community or in the world that I want to say thank you to
Mm.
for their contribution to my good. And it doesn't, I mean, some of you have large families, so it'll be real easy if you have 12 members of your family that support you. But I'm thinking everybody from politicians to entertainers to celebrities to musicians to the teacher, the crossing guard, uh, the housekeeping staff, wherever you work or whatever, to find 12 people that you can honestly, openly acknowledge and say thank you. I've started doing that some time back, and when people tell me what they did, I say thank you for your service, and they look at me like I'm not in the military. Well, you see, you don't have to be in the military to contribute to service. And I look at the health industry. I know there's a lot of polarization around health and how we're taking care of with COVID and all of that. But there's no arguing with the level of commitment and compassion that I'm seeing amongst the workers in the community who care and risk their lives to care. So if you can this week, find 12 people that you want to say thank you to for their social commitment and their social grace and their social gifts to you. And it'll expand your world. In addition to what I know is the more you say thank you to others, the more thankful you feel.
Exactly. So I did want to share some of the things that we've been
Yeah.
able to do as our um, church communities. I don't know if you know it, but I think one of the best thing we've ever done as Centers for Spiritual Living started with our teens, our teen groups. And it was at one of their teen camps, a young man showed up with his son, teenager, who was from Ghana. And he was talking about, the dire poverty in Ghana and
Wasn't gonna.
the children. It wasn't Ghana.
No, I can't think of the name of it. It'll
Okay.
come to us, but
Well,
it's a small African
started with,
community.
oh shoot, I can't think either right now. But the teens asked them, well, I said, well, what is it that you most need? They said, we need schools. We need schools in our villages to teach our children. So these teens got together and with the help of their coordinators and minister sponsors would go to Africa every year and build a school in a different village. And that I'm telling you, these people and their advisors would go to the water and haul water for the concrete. They would mix the concrete. I mean, they built this from scratch with the help of the villagers. Everybody participated. And the most interesting thing, not only did the village end up with a school every year, but what we saw is that our teens benefited much more than anything else we could have done to help teach them. One was a young man who was from a rather affluent family, but he was an acting out teenager, miserable, even suicidal. And he came back totally turned around. And when we asked him what happened, why did it make such a difference in his life? He said, well, I've always been afraid that I won't be able to make as much money as my father or be as successful as my family. And I've always been scared about what am I going to do to make it in the world? He said, I no longer have to ask that question. I no longer have to ask, can I make a difference in the world? Because I already have. And so it was really wonderful to see, but what a great thing that we did as an organization. And we have another organization called the Association of Global New Thought that includes churches and organizations from all the New Thought organizations, which include Unity and Divine Science and who knows what else, independent, a lot of independent New Thought churches. And they just do numerous projects that help around the world. The biggest one is the Season of Nonviolence that they do honoring Gandhi and Martin Luther King, that goes from mid-January to about the 4th of April. And it's become quite an event nationally. And it started when we were in Sarasota, so
Mhm.
that was before 1999. So I think we were participating in that in 1998 or something.
Yeah.
So there's far more we can do. We can go further together. So we need to remind ourselves. We already know that's a spiritual truth. Now, how can we take it out into the world?
And I think the first simple step is to say thank you.
I love that.
To say thank
I
you
love that.
anywhere and everywhere that you see service being provided and not necessarily acknowledged, but you're not acknowledging the service to the service worker for that person. You're acknowledging the service for yourself, and what you acknowledge stays with you. And I think we are often not in a state of acknowledgement. I was at a restaurant a while back and sat and I listened to one of the customers berate the service person for not having attended to his needs the way he thought they should have been attended to. And I watched her tolerate that and accept that and work with that and imagining what I would do. And if I were in that situation, I was thinking she didn't do anything wrong, but she was being made wrong. When it was all done and they left, she came over to my table to, and quite separate from knowing anything about what had gone on. And I said, first off, before I order anything, I want to tell you how appreciative I am of the service that you provided and the kindness that you demonstrated and the willingness. Well, she broke down in tears, had to leave and come back. And she said, I've worked here for 5 years and nobody's ever thanked me.
Mm, mm.
And I realized it wasn't just the need to thank her for what she'd done and support her, but I realized how hungry we all are for encouragement and for support and for acknowledgement.
And appreciation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the job I have now, I'm working as a recreational therapist in a community mental health center. Every day I go in and I create something with the patients and I put it up on a bulletin board, and I'm satisfied that they've done something that is valuable for them and their health, and I've done something creatively that's supported it. At the same time, I was thinking about why hasn't my boss acknowledged it? And I asked him, I said, have you seen it, what I've done? He said, oh yeah, I see it all the time. And it occurred to me that no matter how good we are at what we do, and no matter how much we contribute, we're still looking for people to say thank you and I see what you do. We're never beyond that. And if we're not beyond that, and some of us have a great deal of skill and have accomplished great things, and we're still in need of that acknowledgement at some level, what's it like for people who have very little that they feel they contribute, whose way of being in the world is so limited? That's really significant. Along with that, I watched a homeless man helped an elder woman cross the street. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. He may be homeless, but he recognizes how homeless a person is when they're trying to cross the street and having a hard time.
Nice, nice. Well, let's close with oh, we're going to, before we stop the recording, we're going to share our celebration of giving, but let's close with a prayer.
Sure.
So let's know together that we are all one. We are all connected. And so as we learn to drop our ideas of other people being the other, but that they are one with us, we treat every encounter as a holy encounter.
Knowing deep within that we are all walking together, and that, as was said by a great person, we're all just here walking each other home. And so we are walking closer to each other today than we have in the past, walking heart to heart, hand to hand, soul to soul, connecting and allowing that connection to be increased, enriched, and empowered. And for this possibility, we are grateful and we say thank you.
And together we say,
And so it
and
is.
so it is. And so now we're going to do our
We
celebration.
need to turn off the
No,
recording.
no, not yet.
Oh,
So this is our opportunity to give you an opportunity to share. Some of you already have during the week. I appreciate
thank you so much for that.
your ongoing giving. And for those of you who haven't and who would like to, our address is up here. Why am I not saying? Here it is. It's rather small. cslpalmbeaches.org. And if you go to that address, you will see a button that says ways to donate. And these are different ways that you may donate. And so I'd like you to say with me this affirmation, because this is the season of abundance and a full, I want to say crop. What do we say? Harvest, harvest. So say with me, my investment today is made with the full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. And so it is. So we thank you for your support, and we hope that you give to every source of inspiration in your life.
And then we're going to turn off the recording so we can actually share some more with you.